opportunity for all of us to come together today. And Tibetan Buddhism is how powerful is the depends on your motivation. Then it's very, very important try to develop Mahayana motivation. Therefore, we recite the refuge. The 4 lines. The first 2 lines talk about refuge. The second 2 lines talk about bodhicitta. Therefore, it's very important when we recite the words, not just blah 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 blah. Try to deep motivation. Then we do 4 measurables. Is in order to develop bodhicitta, before bodhicitta, we need 4 measurables. Therefore, they are all very
these are the kind of steps.
Therefore, then bodhicitta and the refuge we create the merit.
The collection of the merits.
Right? After we are going to recite the Heart Sutra, is famous, short, whole. We have Buddha Shakyamuni is taught 108 volumes. It's what we call kanjol. Then the more conclusion is, Bumtaba Chuniro, and then you do Tumbasum, then Jetomba, then the Sharanimbo, then the As, the Shasantiman de Yoroa. Then Sharanimbu Narakan, Tumbani, the Shasan Sankurtinida. The Kabla and Ishi to Sagaroa. And then Sonam got to the Ishi Sony, Yam to Sawa Toyana. And it Tigi, Tango Santi Comatoya, Murvata. And the Shucheda, the Jeza. Then Chigmataway Nata, Kavibada, and the College of Nada, Sandias, Tokumare, the Jeza. Pemmesimbeга, Sonambuso, Ishi Sony, and the Sunday Dene, Yamlechet kitchen body, then the ring on the tambo, and then go to Jamdo, then the same day, then the same issue, and the Sharam Yumbo Zamala, and the Tsuk Dabanashi, and the Samasama Tangi, Tangindana, Tango Yamanite, Tamiti, Jacob Chava Yungres, the Tanganzo, Shunju Chimbodoina, and the Jesse Chimbo Shavala, and the Jaga Pendata. Pemesibega Kappa, Yamlemba, and the Nanjama Chimbo, or the Nijiga song. And the Jamborim Shakadina song of the Vata, Shanchi was Simcola, and the Chig Labjasaganamento song it, a Shunjule Trajicine, the Mepanores. And the Jamborim Korangi, and the Shanchi was simply Yamling it so day, and the Kunalamatenti Jamso Sandia, and the Kunalamatenti song data, Nimaga Pemesibe. Lama Karachimboyre, Consonant and the Shunju Dama the Shune, and Tenny and each Misseria, Shajab Sim College, Coada, Trenia Song Song of the Water, Nanzo, Ya, then they cock up, Tingin Numinta, Tamakumba Net, Tamakumba, Namjunga Makumba Jelagroa, Tamakumba Green at the Travi. Are you 20 near Layana and Yamani, and the Shunju Colaya donation what data? Marangonenari, Lenjesuna by Nanga Pemizimbe, Kawasambo, Sonobutso, Lapchimbo Sagares, then they go so the Sanjay Genro Damado, Konola Ralegates, Teneda, Konoyapo, Churonas, the Kanja Kuno Chisavade, and it's Koadang Yasongo Dungal and Jitane, and the Telejubiniba, and the Sanjay Chu, Gendusum Layabashi, Tela Japson Ravatachi, carry each other, and the Sanjay Mato. Parda, and the Suzugo Shansawa, and the Chick, Kando Gejova, Sonongo Sote, Karichina, and the same gender of Sanjay Mato Pardas, Shanchapada down the Jobsum she Sanjay Mato Batachi is Elosh, and it takes some gender with the Jamro Simchiniga, and it Jamro de the Matas, maybe too much, and Jamro de Ganzo Kansa the number you make it a passport or restaurant. And the same day, they can't have the Tewachu may make a passport. That Lami Dorita, Tenganzo, Kitchimashara race. Maybe too much, maybe forgot.
Hello. So before we do the recitation in the morning, we have to understand a few things. Why are we doing the recitation? Basically, we are really generating the two collections, the collection of the merits and the collection of wisdom. And when we really combine the two collections, it will help us to attain enlightenment swiftly or faster. And to really attain the full enlightenment, we need both the collection of the merits and the collection of the wisdom. If you miss one of the collections, we wouldn't get there. And that's why it's really important we think through these when we do the recitation. So what we do is we first take the refuge, and then we think about the four immeasurables. And then we think about the, take the refuge, generate the bodhicitta, and then four immeasurables. And this is really great fortune for us to be in New York and to talk about the Junjuk, the way of Bodhisattvas. This is composed by a great Nalanda scholar, Shantideva. Shantideva is a great scholar as well as a practitioner and a highly realized yogi. And when we talk about the practices of bodhicitta, and there is no better text than the Shantideva. His Holiness the Dalai Lama himself often mentions that when it comes to practicing bodhicitta, this teaching is the most profound and the most kind of inclusive. His Holiness the Dalai Lama received this teaching from Kunu Lama Rinpoche, the Kanu Lama Rinpoche of Nyingma, the practitioner and yogi. And His Holiness mentioned that after he received this teaching from Kunu Lama Rinpoche, and he also did practice, and he felt very strong. He felt strongly about some kind of a change in his mind stream, and he felt the impact immediately. So this teaching is a very reliable and very effective. And so we had the great fortune to attend the four leisures and practicing and learning this teaching in New York for the next 2 days. It's an amazing opportunity for us. This is such a rare occasion where in New York, place like New York, with which has all the wonders of the 8 leisures, and we are studying this most profound and sacred text. And so for me, personally, this is a great fortune, a great opportunity. And I hope you do feel the same. And through doing this, studying of the bodhicitta teachings, we are generating a great merit, purely just by doing that. And therefore, it's really important that we cultivate the right motivation. And before we receive the teaching, we make sure that we have the right intention. We really cultivate the intention not only for ourselves, but the benefits extends to all the sentient beings. And so it's really important that we do this kind of creating the positive intention or the motivation right at the beginning is really important. Because of that, at the beginning of the prayer, we are taking refuge, and then we are also taking refuge in Buddha, and then we generating bodhicitta. So taking refuge in Buddha, Sangha, Dharma is a passport to the gate of Buddhism, and a passport to become a Buddhist. And then to take the bodhicitta, to generate bodhicitta is like a passport to go to the entrance of the Mahayana tradition. So these two, taking refuge, generating bodhicitta, is really important. And so we dedicate our merits, both the collection of merits and wisdom, for the benefit of all sentient beings. really this the creation of the true merits become the causes of enlightenment for all sentient beings. And that's how we should really do it. Therefore, when we do the recitation, we do so genuinely and sincerely by thinking all this, meaning carefully, and thus it's become a meaningful prayer.
Also, tanda jirum buji song yawas. Nilu tobe shara medena niju shangju samla komja ja sibi tsawachiba menebe tishi tendo tobe tarambes. Niju dan shangju samla komba yinayang. Tonyu tobe shara de mewa yina anin kowala tatu kumare esro. Tliza tanganzo jamro do shangju sem se tabachi. Anin sharani bodega ta tonyu tobe shara song tanga tu sindas.
So, as Lama Tsongkhapa mentioned in his one of his teaching, that even I think it's in the three principles of the path. Even you really practice renunciation and bodhicitta without the practicing the wisdom perfection, we would not be able to attain liberation and enlightenment. And therefore, really, it's important that we we generate wisdom. And because of that, in this prayer, we are doing the Heart Sutra. And then I missed one in the previous translation, that the wisdom perfection teaching that Buddha Shakyamuni gave, is incredibly huge volumes. We have 25,000 verses of wisdom sutras. We have 8,000 verses of wisdom sutra, and then we have a little bit kind of shorter wisdom sutra, and then everything is condensed in the Heart Sutra. Why is like a heart? It's basically it's the essence of all the wisdom sutras that Buddha gave in different places in the different volumes. And so when we recite Heart Sutra, we should think about this wisdom. And when we do that, then we here manage during this prayer. We are able to manage to collect both the merits as well as the wisdom.
대화 남바 임에도 점도 레스 대화 처음에 임에도 semche당도 랍서 줄랍서송데 슈템바 어디 된데다 아니 빠데 다와트베요 그도 되냐 쇼야 가보제제 봐 남베 잡었네 지원감바 예스 고마주변을 간지 아니 샹조가 산제 돈유도 빌로니가 요이나 아니 산제 공바 톱도 그래스 배차샤가나 샹감바데 준드는 바른 바거나 쇼파니자고 뭐 쇼파칭 파도 문도 와서 어다트베 어딘데다 당한서 빼면서 고급 상보 내려가려야 그럼 야포 주셔와네 소소 추데 야포지도 추침분로도 문로건으로 알아요 그래서 근데서 나랑 뭐는 지금 쉬게셔다 나게 되게요 맞다 있나야 다지 다 자유라마수 강성셔바데 집바만님바 간정간주 디코 돈이체데스 무슨 말 전송에마 마시에게 사와셔요 말스 이는 나랑도 그자서 라마치글 로마 담득 장마인자
And so, as I mentioned before, the taking refuge is like a passport entering in the Buddhist gate, and then generating bodhicitta really is a password to become a Mahayana practitioner. So these two are really important. And as mentioned by Dharmakirti, in the entrance of Madhyamaka, he said that for the Ngangpa, a dog, to really cross the ocean or cross the lake, he need to relay on the two wings. And what is for the practitioners, for the Mahayana practitioners, we need to relay for the two wings of bodhicitta and wisdom to really cross the ocean of samsara. And to do that, again, I'm emphasizing here that the cultivating the right motivation, the motivation that we wanted to generate the true collections for the benefit of all sentient beings. For that sake, we wanted to attain enlightenment so that we can help all the sentient beings to attain enlightenment. And that motivation is really important here. And so here, I'm just, kind of repeating that I myself, I do not consider as a realized or special person, but I had the fortune to receive these incredibly valuable teachings from my root lamas and gurus. And so I'm just kind of sharing this with you today.
Therefore, when His Holiness also start teaching, he's a big, huge text. Then first, before he enter the book, he's explain to what's Buddhism, why we need to study Buddhism, what benefit, But like that kind, I think you already know. You already all senior students. We don't need to talk. But before we start, very important to motivations, very important. Then we have Mahayana, Hinayana. It also depends on the motivation. Even you do same action, but you practice to go to Mahayana or Hinayana. It's practice to go to the cause of the cheap Buddhahood or cheap on another human being like that. That depends on your motivation. Therefore, everyone try to very great motivation. Then also think about the place here. Also, I believe there are also a lot of holy gurus come here. They teach here. A lot of Dharma students come here. They are all holy objects. A very, very powerful place. Therefore, everyone, little bit thinking about like here, like not just Buddha's picture, like real Buddhas here. Not me, okay? Real Buddhas here. Now, usually the married feel has too many different ways, you have to thinking so many different, but it's too complicated for us. You're just thinking, you don't need to think, oh, Buddhas are there, magicians are here, like that, just you think about Buddha Shakyamuni, then all the Bodhisattva was around, or root gurus, or lineage gurus, around from us. Okay? This is our merit field. All the Bodhisattva was also there, feel happy to see us, not just very serious. Because the reason they're happy, because we follow the advice. When we follow the advice, this is the best for offering for Bodhisattvas. Therefore, everyone is thinking like Buddha, real person, real enlightened Buddha, and around here all the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas. From us also, not just a couple of people here, you think all sentient beings. Your father, your mother, your enemy, your relative. Not just gap someone, just all sentient beings around us. We pray together, we listen to teaching together. We set up the motivation together. Then how much you pick your motivation, you get that kind of merit. Therefore, if you know how you practice Buddhism, it's very easy. If you don't know how you practice Buddhism, it's very difficult. If you know Buddhism practice, you can walking, you can eating, whatever you do, you can mix, even you sleeping, you can do go to virtuous. If you don't know, even you stay 2 all days here in meditation, not necessarily become a real cause to Buddhahood. Therefore, motivation is important. Then now we start. Everyone thinking, like Buddha, I mentioned, a real Buddha. Around here, all the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas front us. Then they're also happy, looking for us. And we at the front them, we taking refuge for Buddha, Dharma, Sangha for benefit of all sentient beings. We set up the motivation for bodhicitta, also benefit all sentient beings. The sentient beings also not just us, all sentient beings, limitless, just limitless, thinking that around us. Don't think that this house is too small, not fit. It's just limitless. Then keep the motivation that today until tomorrow afternoon. Try to, if you forget the but try to bring back. Okay? Okay, now you can start. slowly, then everyone think the meaning, okay? This is more important.
I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. And now the four immeasurables. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be separated from the happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. Seven-limb prayer.
Or maybe skip that.
Skip that.
Not do Heart Sutra, otherwise we have not much time.
The Heart Sutra is on page 6. I prostrate to the Arya the Bhagavan is dwelling on massive
mountain in Vajrayana.
together with the community of
And back then, the Bodhisattva is in concentration and backward phenomena called profound perception. Also at that time, the Bodhisattva and Mahasattva profound perfection of wisdom, and beyond those five aggregates of that empty of inherent nature.
then through the power of Buddha, the venerable Shariputra said this to the Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, Arya, and Vishara. How should any son of the lineage trained wishes to practice the activity of profound perfection of wisdom? He said that the Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, Arya, Avalokiteshvara said to this venerable Shariputra, Shariputra, any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who wish to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom should look at him like this, correctly and repeatedly beholding those five aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Form is empty, emptiness is form, emptiness is not other than form, form is not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Likewise, all phenomena are emptiness, without characteristic, unproduced, unceased, stainless, not without stain, not deficient, not fulfilled. Shariputra, therefore in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no visual form, no sound, no odor, no taste, no object of touch, and no phenomenon. There is no eye element, and so on up to and including no mind element, and mental consciousness element. There is no ignorance, no existential ignorance, and so on up to and including no aging and death, and no extension of aging and death. Similarly, there is no suffering, origination, cessation, and death. There is no exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. Shariputra, therefore, because there is no attainment, Bodhisattvas rely on and dwell in the perfection of wisdom, the mind without aspiration and without fear. Having completely passed beyond error, they reach the end point of nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in the three times also manifestly, completely awaken to unsurpassable, perfect, complete enlightenment, in reliance on the perfection of wisdom. Therefore, the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassable mantra, the mantra equal to the unequaled, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all sufferings, should be known as truth, since it is not false. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is declared.
Om Gati Gati Pada Gati Pada Samgati Bodhisoha. Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva should train the profound perfection of wisdom like that.
Then Bhagavan arose from that concentration and commended the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, saying, well said, son of lineage. It is like that. It is like that. One should practice the profound perfection of wisdom just as you have indicated. Even the Tathagatas rejoice. However, having thus spoken to eternal Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, those surrounding in the entering along with the world of God, human, asuras, and the Dharmas, were overjoyed and highly praised the spoken Bhagavan.
A short mandala offering on page 8. This ground, anointed with perfume, strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, 4 continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha field and offer it. May all living beings enjoy this pure land. The inner mandala offering. The objects of my attachment, aversion, and ignorance, friends, enemies, strangers, and my body, wealth, and enjoyments. Without any sense of loss, I offer this collection. Please accept it with pleasure and bless me with freedom from the 3 poisons.
Guru Ranam Bandalaganya Dayami. Saje Chedan Soji Chono La Chancho Pado Dano Jobson Dagi Chishi Jebe Sono Ji Dola Pencho San Reba Sho Saje Chedan Soji Chono La Chancho Pado Dano Jobson Dagi Chishi Jebe Sono Ji Dola Pencho San Reba Sho Saje Chedan Soji Chono La Chancho Pada Dano Jabsum Che Dak Chishi Jive Tonum Dola Pencho Sanjin Can you hear at the back, at this level of the voice? Or do we need to volume up a little bit? A little bit up? Yes, I think so. And also the Geshe too.
I think I'm very loud. Loud?
Now you can hear. Is it a little bit better? Or? Okay.
It's good.
How about Geshe?
Are you able to hear me?
Can you hear Geshe?
You can hear the Tenzin Gelek one. It's good?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, now when we actually start with text, then I try to not talk too much. Otherwise we didn't finish. But I already mentioned, and the motivation is very important. The Shantideva, I think you already know who composed the text, is the Pintuda of Narendra. Then during that time, all the monks like teasing him. Look like he's all the time sleeping. They called him to Dushisambhava. He know only three things. What he eat, he's sleeping, then he go bathroom. Dushisambhava. He look like that, but his really is inner is very scholar, very practice. Then the monastery was a monastery. The rule, the monks have to teach every summer retreat. Then 1 year, that Shantideva trained to have to teach. Then all the monks teach him. Now what he can teach, he doesn't study. He all the time sleeping. He's the lazy monk. Everyone teaches him. Then also, they all doesn't like him. Then they put a very high throne. Then
And they were deliberately teasing him,
then
embarrassing him.
Yeah, then since he come, then he just put his hand on the throne. He just make very short. Then I was, maybe some special. Then he start the throne. Then he asked him to, what I have to teach? If you want to teach something for already Buddha taught, already write down the text, or you want to something else new? Then they say, okay, we need to something new one. Then he start teaching the 10 chapters, Shantideva. Then before he finish, he also fly to the South India. Then all the Pentritas also they have ability to fly. They follow him. Then they listening what he did. He's talking, he fly. Then also he told some looking for like that thing, looking for another text, like another text. The word of the text, then he said, I already composed in my cap. You can see the small holes in my cap. Like that, he's very scholar. He's really special practice for the Bodhicitta. Whatever his practice, he just told this text. Therefore, this text also, basically they talk about six perfections. The 6 perfections is, we need to, I already told, wisdom and merit. There are generosity, then ethics, then what? Passion, then what? What? Choice, effort.
Joyous effort.
Okay. The 4 is the go to the kato sonamutsok.
These are the mainly for the merits collection. Belongs to the collection of the merits.
아니 띵이되지 가로 다 파시대 거나 만도 대양 당가시든나 아니 진배 가로나 손은 붙고나 그래 가시든나 샤르 붙고나 그래 스카레 샤르 컨트롤에 시작을 간지 대니 담네 간지 간도 손은 붙고도 이시촌이 사고 그래서
And for the concentration, or sometimes there's the meditation chapter, and the wisdom chapter belongs to the collection of the wisdoms. There is a debate about if or whether the concentration chapter belonging to the wisdom collection. There's still debate, but the combination of the concentration and the wisdom certainly belongs to the collection of wisdom. While the 4 previous perfections are obviously belonging to the collection of merits.
간지 말아서 참만데 지 냠래도 로종시아 고가시와데 뻬메제베게 나 까와야 까와상보시라 레스 여러와 아니 다 드린 니마니는 간존데 로종치 미세케 레오토ngo 말해서 여러와 이나 티전데네야 뎀데서 안에양도 로와이나 아니 지나서 뎀데 테마 줄로와이나 고만도 주냐 그래서 고만도 쮸니한테 뎁가나기 고알 록송하게 말해서 나가서 담보 마셔야 돼. 삼로 땅와나. 아니 텔레지 삼로 띵 사바. 아니 고마라고 요한다. 아니 고만도 쮸니 그랬어. 그래도 양내양다 로고레스.
So this is such a wonderful opportunity for us to gather here and study Shantideva's text. I mentioned how sacred and valuable this text is. But just studying this for 2 days, wouldn't make us spatial or wouldn't really help us to transform our mind. It's really important if you really wanted to make a meaningful change. You really have to read it as often as possible, as many as possible. When you read it one time, you get an understanding, maybe one understanding. And when you read it over 10 times, you get 10 different really understanding and attack. And this is not because the text has to offer different meanings. It's because every time we read it, we gain a different realization of the meanings. And therefore, it's really important that we read and that we reflect. And when we combine the reading and the reflection on the text, it really deepens our understanding and the appreciation of the profound meaning. And so I encourage you to really read the text as many as possible.
아니 저와야 뭐도 왔어. 단단 저 가시 때 고대원로. 가시 양पे 인지간에 빼고 걸려거든도. 아니 지 저 가시 냠도 로가나 양 고마라 팽레스로. 다가는 직장장 어떻게 하면 되지? 아니 만도 비로 갈래 만도로 저 갈래야. 아니 배제 싸워치 임바네 되게 저와 숨쉬시간 냠도 개네 아니 될래야. 아니 진래시 자타 만다와다. 될때 수수 고마라 팽레스.
You know that there are many different commentary on the Shantideva's, the way of a Bodhisattva. So sometimes it's really useful to read these commentaries together, along the root text, and this will really help you to gain a deeper and a better understanding. Because some commentaries are very dense, whereas some commentaries also too short. But when you study this text, you can maybe read a couple of different commentaries along the root text, and this will really help you to deepen your understanding of the text. We do that in the monastery too. I also appreciate this approach. When we were studying in the monastery, we would really, of course, memorize the root text, and then we will read a few different commentaries on that root text together, concurrently. For me, this really helped me to gain the much deeper understanding about the text, and so I'm just suggesting this to you. You may also benefit from this approach.
아니 정도다 인지가 저주되가 인지가 저 말하고 가시도 안다나 그걸 아버지도 명예 됐을 깔 가고도 서도 야 심바지 나도 warna 던지지요 대대들 라로 가지 나는 먼저 들은다데 가게 되나 근데 저도야 정에게 인지 배제 따다가 전에 양 가시 고갈 가고 싶잖아도 그래서 양 따뜻한 올라 가고 라고도 아니 줄 말하고만 보는데 양 또다나 고갈 팽도 왔어.
Also for the translation, there are different versions of the translation of this text. And there's one translation version published in Varanasi, or the Saranath, Tibetan Higher Studies Institute. I'm not sure which translation version is this. Sometimes I found some translations are very accessible, very easy to read, whereas some translations are very dense and difficult. So you can also do the same thing. You can have a few different versions of the translation and compare them for your fun. And you can get a lot of these different translations online, for free of charge. You can go to surf internet and have a few more kind of different translations, see if they make differences by comparing the verses.
In the Shi, Savage, Lojong Cheta, Chudo Penkawa, Mitsekono Cheta, Lojong 2 days was. The Lojo Cheta, another than the Chunton Kayos. Oh, the thing Arangi, and the Shimba Lab dead, and Arangi Yamuro let them sit down. The Lojo Cheta Chunto Yayo was.
In generally speaking, excuse me, you're much better at doing research than us. I don't have to tell you how to do research because I think you guys are really expert on that. But for this purpose, I'm telling you from my experience, I found having a few different versions of the translation and a few different versions of the commentary very useful to deepen our understanding.
The Chunzota Chene Paje, Loni, Palusum, Rigero, Tatane Tandava, Lojo Jaja, Shinita, Deda was Pache. Then the Lojo Ganzo, Tapetilla. A lot
of you really start your education from the age of 3, and so you've been doing education for all these years, and so of course you are the expert, you are the master of the how to learn things. So we don't have to, really tell you how to do research. Of course, it's so obvious.
The thinking of the pay lotion me. The Kanji, Tandanga Losh Shidui, the game with the Shekala Lojon Coach and Raya Modest. Shekam Masujilla, the Lojon Tanyamia Chundra, Tevada, baby Chaders, Chunzo Yagares. Naya Nachukola in Ganzo Lojontes. Mado, Kotomayo attended that. Then dig a 10 Bechanita, Tibara Dolishag. Where was?
For myself, I left Tibet at the age of 19, and then I started how to read Tibetan, and I started learning Buddhism. So compared to you, my education is actually started much later. And so from a general education, you guys really have, I'm sure, have a much more profound experience than myself. But in terms of maybe studying Buddhism or in the field of Buddhist studies, maybe I can, I have the privilege because I've been studying that since the age of 19. And so in any way, it's really good to use this opportunity as a discussion. Then we may gain more.
Okay, now we not talk too much. Otherwise, we didn't go. Sometimes I teach to my center in Kukul Center. Usually, I don't know, this is my habit. I like to talk before start the book. Sometimes I couldn't touch my book. This is a very bad habit for me. But like also I'm follow his own Dalai Lama. Sometimes he say, oh, now he never finished this book. He doesn't. If we have just 2 hours, he have to go to 200, verses. But he doesn't start with, oh, maybe he doesn't finish, because I think he start first. We need very important to understand why, what, how. Then you really know what you're doing. Then just easy to follow like that. Sometimes he's always give a Kalachaka session. That everybody running that. Then also get a lot of people. He's always say, I'm a very smart person. When they are going to give Kalachaka session, the before start Kalachaka session, I'm teaching for very what we call important texts for that time. I'm use the opportunity to Kalachaka to try to give them more education for people. Usually, without you have any idea for wisdom, emptiness, or bodhicitta, if you go to Kalachaka, you go there, you don't have any, idea. You cannot receive the initiation. Therefore, before he start the man, then he start very important explain things. Therefore, sometimes I say I'm very bad. How about that? Another thing I say, it's not bad maybe. Even his holiness also that very important. He always say, first you need to really understand what's Buddhism, why, what benefit, how you practice, like that. Then go to text, you can read text all the time, Like that. Now we have to talk about the patience. I believe all of you very patient person. Patient means impatient, right? They're angry. Impatient. Impatient means for, this we're not talking about for you harm others. Let's talk about yourself. I'm not pointing you, okay? We miss just how you talk about. If you are a very angry person, basically, we think about, if you're the very angry person, who get lost? Who get lost? So, shembal panan soso chungraga, so chung soso raga yonda, ta kontro malangs. Ani shedang ma jes, ta zo tel sam tangures. Ngamzu shen pa sam ta matwana. Shedang soso kontro lama ne, shelam nega dali, te pa shane, tegi kontro lama tegi soso la nega re. Soso la karadan suzu semji shide de la nega re. Suzu semji shide de la sana, ani suzu semla ngamra yonga re. Suzu semla ngamra yonga na, ani midi tse tonga yonga re. Tenji ta tiringa zo soso indas. Nge semji shembala pento chemni kisha mewa chal te su shaarwa. Tambo shonju chimuna son yorwas. Raga tunde nedisam karo. Mulam taya mamni na shenji danda kala sese. Tambo soso gu dunga da roma antwa na shenji dunga saya pento chese ta charangi. Ta zuma rang re se. Tenda tambo kontrol na ya soso la kare nega tu. Ngaja chaya soso la kare nega tu.
So when we talk about engaging or relying on patience, and we have to think about the benefit. If we really look very carefully, the benefit of practicing patience is really enormous. Not for others, but for ourselves. When we overcome anger and hatred, it brings us peace and happiness. And on the other hand, when we really get frustrated, angry all the time, it's basically really eating our peace of mind. And so if you look very carefully, practicing really patience is good for you. Forget about other people. Generally, think that way. And so, what happens is when we get angry, we lose peace, and we get really stressed out. And this really creates a lot of physical and mental hazard for our health. As a result, it shortens our life. But then if we engage in the practice of patience, it generates peace in our mind. And there's so many good things come out of it. And as Shantideva mentioned, that if you are not able to solve your problems, or if you're not able to address your issues, forget about addressing others. And we take this really seriously in this teaching, and consider that we are really engaging in the practice of patience for our own sake. So I think this as the main kind of approach during this teaching.
Control. I'm not talking about you guys, angry person, okay? We have to know that. Because control said the concept of shooting by na, and near condition until they were to Maris. And she chulogo jin, tenje pejo, cousin in the middle they were to Maris. Suzu sem control saw, Trado Sabajin by na. Then that is Suzu Lachi what was. What they that rendered them on some town or restaurant.
And also continue from the previous discussion that we have to think very carefully. We have to observe carefully how anger arises. This is really a very important step in addressing our anger. And when we get angry, and then it would not really provide any benefit or any sort of comfort to our beloved one. And when we lose the peace in our mind, nothing will replace that joyous, status. Nothing external, the facilities and the conditions would replace our peace without we taking the initiative.
드레다전다 삼도 소소 찜밤에 기고면 뭐 콘로사되고 갈라지 소소 조 니에 간에 설라나 두돌아 콘로사된 경우도 두도 콘로사고 제대면 사된 경우도 간은 소소 콘로사가 샘기 보면 되게 경우에 드레다 다 소중하네 대마 자야기 답시 제거를 했어 간지 네발만 통화였나 아니 네발만 팽으로 와서 만도 파기 티켓을 다 네가 파기 싫어 지금 뭔가 모르셨던 것도 무슨 사업도 휴책도 와 가나 파기 티켓은 소소 바고 조라고 하거니 아니 쉬운 털을 티체는 말했어 소소 바고 티체네 파기 티켓 마트 답시 못 check 그래서 또 네가 뭐라 쳐서 뭐라 영향되면 가시 가서 버스트 그래.
So when we lose control and when we experience anger, it also causes the directly and indirectly the sufferings to our relatives, and so we have to know the fault and the problem of anger, and by recognizing the problem of getting angry, then we would try to overcome this by relying on proper antidotes. And so the recognizing this problem is really important at the beginning. I'm not sure in New York, but in Boston, if you park your car at a wrong place, you get tickets. And therefore we are very careful about where to park our car. Not because we really love the rule or that we really respect the rule, but because we're losing money. And because of that, we're very careful and we automatically observe the rules very carefully. Likewise, when you really see the disadvantage or the harm of anger, then I think that's where it's really important to recognize the harm that the anger brings. When you recognize the harm, then automatically you will also become much more cautious.
Okay? 다 셀라 내가 그러면 수도 콘로세베다 셀라 내가 임바다 다 랑라 내가 임바치 다 셀라 그런 것은 나 미사질이야 바와 아마 보고 남이 빼자 다 gond아질라치 gond아 셀라로 냠도 사야게 그 도리 다 고리로 야보체야나 대 나네 무치 콘로 사와이나 되게 남이 쳐다 지우면 소샤그래 셀라이나 좋아면 소샤그래 대 미치 제도이다 콘로치 원단데 좀더 다시 냠녀저러 와서 바바라 생에 야만 하마라 생에 야나 부 가면 이제나 남이 간가 되오면 소샤근도 와 근데다 콘로세야 돼 빼면서 슈침보 니바침보 콘로세야 돼 파타와이나 지금 간소 지 잡초성으로 간소 손주성으로 피해라 지나 저랑 밑에 저랑 가금도 되다 내 대다 콜 카페 짜게서 간소 손주적에서로 간소 남바 용거스 난 뭔데 지나 간소 다냐라 용인 거는 그래.
And so I just talked about how the anger harms us. Now look at how anger harms others. Anger is very powerful and it's very destructive. Imagine that a family prepares a really nice dinner and it brings all the children, parents together. It's doing kind of a nice gathering. And when everyone was really happy, and then suddenly if one of the member of the family get really angry and lose control, it will basically destroy the entire atmosphere. This peaceful, the joyous kind of mood on the table will be totally destroyed. And so I'm sure you have this experience, right? Meaning, you observed some of this experience. And that's how anger is harmful. It can destroy not only yourself, but the entire, the community. So like sometimes you have a large family gathering, and then either parents get drunk and lose their control, or children lose control over anger. And it really destroys this family kind of joyous mood. So that's where anger is so powerful and harmful. But what really sometimes the deceptive, the appearance of the anger is that anger comes as a kind of supporting you. Sometimes anger arises, and it gives you the impression the anger is there to help you, to protect you, to energize you. But if you think really carefully, it's not the case. It's rather very harmful. And if you really look very carefully how anger arises and what it does, anger is the really main agent in taking us down to the hell.
Okay? Okay, now I'm going to start this, okay? There is a control say the Karanangandu gave a chu Kevada, Machewa Kevada. And the Keva never Chabalata can Chechu the Ken Tatu Suna and control the rest. And a control Latene and the Suzu Kawa Ja Tom Mambo Sachewe gets a day control chicken and Mavasosha in Jomasha rest. Teneda Sholoka Tambo the song was. Kawatama, Kawatondo Saba, Jenda de Checholos, Leje Kayan, Tekenja, Kondochikin Jombrashes. What? And the Chonzo, the Titri Losho, and Ganzo on
okay, maybe you can read the first verse together.
Whatever wholesome deeds, such as generosity and making offerings to the Sagatas, have been amassed over thousands of eons, will all be destroyed by anger.
In this verse, it's so obvious. What really anger does is stop us from engaging in the virtuous action, and it really destroys our virtuous action and deeds. And as mentioned, that the virtuous act that we have been accumulating for aeons, for 100 and 1,000 aeons, are easily destroyed by a flash of anger. So that's really telling you how powerful anger is, or how negatively the anger is controlling our deeds.
And there are the Tobayo, the control jumps at the and dig it Tandalaya and but the daughter Omanjubana Carsonda, Digger control digger, such a get and jumps at anything, get a chambojo and get a chuju, get a mature Nasha. Chatham ever such a Gisha is a marriage. Kanji Takaro Mando Shingado Tap Yabuche when I could ocean, she got the Jewachi in a touch pentola matojim, taking so Tendo shadows was. Bed Cromwell's Kisha Remendo to Chene.
So when we look at the anger, which is destroying our all the virtuous work of 1,000 years, and there is doubt, and there's a really clarification by Chandrakirti in his entrance to the middle way text. And Chandrakirti was explaining that when a flash of anger destroys our virtuous act, he's making a point, saying it doesn't mean that the anger is totally wiping out our virtuous act, but rather it's really harming our virtuous act and reducing the effect or the effect of the virtuous act. One example that he gave in the text was when we are growing, crops in the field, and when there are either insects or in there some kind of bugs in the field, it may not really wipe out the fruit entirely, but it definitely affect the fruit and the health of the fruit. So it's reducing the quality of the fruit, right? When you have bugs and even viruses in the field. Likewise, when the anger, is in our mind stream, it's really kind of negatively affect the power of our virtuous act. That's reducing its quality.
Teneda Kayeta Kondo Suzu Midi Kondo Savana, Kondo Tiga Medi Gawashabala Keshagres. Kana Kondo Sadenda, Kondo Tingoda, Gawachin Yomar was Keshagres. Suzu Gawachi saw some of them, never so shagres, Teneda Kondo Tanimuta, Todo Novodang to the Tusinas.
Maybe so the Jichung Dam, the bed.
Or Medwa, the Chota Nibachon Tasha.
So here, basically, also in this text too, we consider that anger is really creating obstacles for our engaging, creates obstacles for us to engage in virtuous deeds or act. And when anger arises, and it really kind of reduces the power of our virtuous deed too.
Okay, I think now we can do break 10 minutes.
Okay.
Right? Otherwise, we talk too much.
We'll have a 10 minutes break.
We need to, usually Buddha said when we meditation also, he said, short, perfect. Too long, then people fall asleep, when we talk about. Therefore, when we talk to perfect, okay? Thank you. We come back 10 minutes, or what time we come back?
We come back 20 past.
Half hour, then lunch time. 그래. 중이 쳐버렸어. Good way, one time, 1 hour. Okay, now recite for you guys second and third together.
There is no negativity like hatred, and no fortitude like patience. Thus I should cultivate patience persistently through various ways. My mind will not experience peace if it holds painful thoughts of hatred. I shall find no joy or happiness. Unable to sleep, I shall feel unsettled.
Okay. 다 뒤에 가서 나 공도전에 따라 소박공부 그래 들어와. 아니 세당 따위 득바. 아니 세당 사이에 다 공도전 좀 침부를. 아니 될어야 갑자기 장에다 다 조바데 야슈래 들어와. 조바데 까뚝 안에 다 매완다 될어 낸텐데 그디나 삼수 나고 소박공부 그래 들어와. 용어에 사두 들어와. 세당도 좀 봐셔봐라. 그 갑자기 장에다 조바데 공부 그래. 아니 쇼로가 담보된 적 같이.
And in the verse second, basically saying that there's no, a negativity like hatred, which really causes us pain. And then when we think about what can we do to really tackle the hatred, the best approach is practicing patience. The patience can be seen as a direct antidote to hatred, hatred which really brings us to pain.
아니 세당 승이 신은 아니 세당 사이드 셈을 세워 있나다 아니까지 뒤가 아니 수수가 리더 셈니가라 아니 마대와 치게다 다 그래 세당도 마티와 소바고 먹고 그랬어 아니 리기 양 되고 매봐 셈나야 되면 리더 셈니게 되와 총도봐 아니 칼아야 심 보면 니구나 니야 보면 양 거다 오다 소바고 먹고 그랬어.
And then, if we are not able to really pacify our hatred, and then it will really cause hazard both to our mind and body, and sometimes really affecting our sleep as well. When we are not able to sleep properly, it really creates a lot of other problems. And therefore, for that reason even, we have to practice patience to overcome the hatred in our mind.
저희들은 이거도 했어요. 공로로 사 되고라는 님마 거지 바로죠. 투아로죠. 아니 녀다도 미나치. 아니 자네 간주만 주셔. 아니 삼방공 주도 왔어. 다된 것도 냠용 용도 왔어.
Do you have that experience where when we get angry and have a hatred in our mind stream and we couldn't go to sleep, we will be turning over, gazing, and basically we go through a quite significant period of torment in our mind stream. And so this is something we all, I'm sure, experienced. For that reason, we have to practice patience so that we can overcome the hatred.
아니 공로사 세마치오면 아니 때는 장통 때는 메신 돌아오고 도와다 되지네. 아니 나도 두 진nes. 저름도 손 따와야나. 아니 공로 되게 자성 매워서와 하고 그랬어.
So when we really go through a certain length of anger and hatred in our mind stream, then we feel so overwhelmed by the effect of such negative power, and then sometimes we rely on alcohol and other really substances to basically we try to overcome anger. So because of the effect of the anger, we wanted to do something to really counter that. And then by sometimes people rely on alcohol and so on. And that even brings more trouble and problem to us. Because of that, now we know practicing patience is a direct countering measure to the anger and hatred.
When the chant of the Nindos, Jibu in the chant of Chida, and the same Dukan to New doors. Jibu can the chant of the Pashi that you Chijizu, sing to the tail of some of and on the Peorana, and the Telegraph, and the Rasi, and the Dumo metal. And the Chijizu Yanchin Zambia was hashing the was. That same Joe, same devil maybe called chant of I that chant down and through the yoga, that chant to Chag was.
True.
That took.
So in terms of relying on alcohol, and we rely on alcohol sometimes when we are happy. We use alcohol for celebrate or do some kind of a joyous thing out of joy, or we consume alcohol when we are really depressed or extremely upset. So usually alcohol is used in different mood. And generally speaking, I admire the Western kind of approach to alcohol. Usually you really drink with a certain control and limit. Whereas the Tibetans, when they gather and consume alcohol, they really go out of their control and get everyone drunk. But I like the American culture where you really drink minimum with a great kind of a restraint on yourself. So when we consume alcohol, out of joy or some kind of a joyous event, it's fine, no problem. But then when we consume alcohol, when we're stressed or depressed, and that actually, have a much deeper impact negatively. And when people really rely on alcohol, when they're not so happy, and then alcohol really stirs and maximizes that kind of disturbances, and as a result, people become so destructive to themselves and to others.
And alcohol got some Tambo and True, they were man to Chicago in the war. That thing is super de me, and then Joboshinova, or the name, Tango Mutant Tonso was.
And so alcohol really in this scenario, where when you drink it without any control, it really kind of becomes so destructive, even to your health. And as you continue consuming without any control, and it's really kind of basically eats your life. It really destroys your physical health.
Okay.
And please, can you read verse 4 and 5 together?
A master who has hatred is in danger of being killed, even by those who for their wealth and honor depend upon his kindness. By it, friends and relatives are disheartened. Withdrawn by his generosity, they will not rely upon him. In brief, there is nobody who dwells comfortably with anger.
Tandi Kaladana, Kondo Savayana, Suzugo, and a Tron, Dashi, Jenda, Nini, the Channel Lado, Tandi Tadoro Tereta, and Adoro Sitinic.
The verse 4 basically saying when you really lose control with anger, or when you constantly rely on anger and hatred, you would lose everything. You would lose your friend, your beloved one, your patrons. Basically, it will really drive away all the friends from you.
나도 미도다 미제도나 다 소소 메테티가 trobo야쇼데 소소 다 사상데 was. And the kondo chila tambo 다데 고도 지나와 왔더니 가지 군이 가자로 용도 왔는데 만보 용도 왔어. 근데 도볼라도 그래서. 근데 고도 사와이나 아니 지금 소주 지금 내가 제가 진다야나 가리나 진다 롱때 되거든. 니마지 진다 굿바스 마 배용도 와. 근데자 근데 소소 조연하도 그래. 소소 그 지금 간제 소소를 잡조정에 차상하라도 그래. 해서 고도 그다 고도 니바 단도 고도 니바 송겨로 와.
So here, basically, Shantideva is talking about the harms or the negative effect of the anger. For secular people or the householders, your best and the most reliable friend is your partner. For a couple, they can trust each other, they can really enjoy a good life. Then, if you constantly get angry at them, and then it will lead you to breaking up. And this is really common. People break up because they couldn't really live together, and they're angry at each other all the time. And this is so obvious, and I'm sure you have this experience. And then for people who often, are overwhelmed by anger at work, you lose your job. The employers wouldn't appreciate you if you're constantly angry at them. Same thing with your friends, with your supporters. Basically, anger really drives all your friends and partners away. So that's what it's talking about. That's what he's talking about.
Okay. 당연히 나와 로사야 나와 시가 로사야 봐. 아니 당 나외 곳에서 계단을 놔둬. 아니 다 두번 ngolo santa tene da khonro de seva de yewa yena da ngawa ting golak do khonro de yewa yena do didi chiwana ane ngawe tsig lam tamadi galo na khonro se de yewa yena ane chi tibe ka deve ka tin name yo mare esro ti kadi yeba da dunga kyo ngare se ando ta dudo dodo ro chewa yena kibe ko ko chi yo mare es 단다야 기회 말이 치마라요 말이스 마오발라요 말이스 가지 공도도 사와이나 다들 도도로 가지.
So the second part of the verse 5 basically talks about when you are controlled by anger, there is no opportunity for joy, no opportunity for happiness in the past, in present time, in the future. In short, when you get angry, there is no moment and no opportunity really to enjoy happiness.
좋아. 어떻게 되지? 다 쇼로가 두바디 질로더라. 다 두바디가 다 조바세데 펜치 뭐 가래레스. 다 간래 장 조바 공고래라 봐. 조바다 까투메스. 다 조바세데 펜치 뭐래. 조바세 공바 있나? 센다당. 세시마. 아니 내가 최선을 팽게래. 대 저바이다 다대 any zopade gomeata semjene jogo gore esro.
So for verse number 6, can you please read verse number 6?
The enemy anger creates suffering such as those, but whoever assiduously overcomes it creates happiness in this and other lives.
In this verse, basically now Shantideva is talking about the benefit of overcoming anger. And when you're able to subdue your anger, it will bring enormous benefit in this life as well as in future lives.
어때리다 가는다. 아니 공주 님이 다 거같. 접에 패다 거이나. 아니 가서 캡상 가와이나 가서 가가 캡상 내가 가오여러 왔어. 나도 단디 마저도 갔나. 공주 님을 섬을 마타마지 가디나 공주 시험하는 절. 접에 패라 섬을 마타마지. 아니 저바 고마서 대용 거래서. 그래서 다 디버직 섬을 따게도 공주 님이다. 접에 패니라야. 다 수야가도 수도건도 되가도 남같이 오러.
So basically, we have to really think at the harms of getting angry or the harms of anger. And at the same time, we have to contemplate on the benefit of practicing patience. So right now, we are constantly under the influence of anger, and we have a little kind of capacity for patience. But if we really have to choose, we really should choose, engaging in patience, and we should really determine to overcome or eradicate our anger. Through these proper practices, we would enjoy happiness.
Okay. 다 쇼로가 dumba jewan nyambulo shoderwa.
And please, can you read number 7 and 8?
Having found this fuel of mental unhappiness in the doing of what I do not wish for, and in the hindering of what I wish for, hatred develops and then destroys me. Therefore, I shall totally destroy the fuel of this enemy. This enemy has no other function than that of causing me harm.
아니 즉 담보대가 아니 딱 공도 제가 제대로 무슨 거였어. 제대. 딱 이제 가르라고 그랬어. 공도사 제가 제대로 가르랬어. 아니 니빠대가 아니 공도도 도비 탑 되더라고 손으로 봤어.
And in verse number 7, it talks about the causes of anger and hatred. In the verse number 8, it talks about the ways we can achieve patience. What are the kind of solutions or the antidotes we can deploy to overcome anger?
그러봐. 다 가르쳤나 제대로 가르쳤나. 나도 셈바 다 예매대와들했어. 예매대에 세년에서. 셈바 때 지고 매완도 나 당고 매완도 다 대지지래. 대값 써서 맞잖아. 다 컨트롤하려고 쉬울랑 그러더라.
So what is the causes of anger? The causes of the anger is mental unhappiness, and when we are not so happy, when we are kind of dissatisfied, or when we feel a little bit agitated, at that time we have to be extremely careful, because this will easily lead to the release of anger.
이거도 삼성만도 지금 전체 그바 개개매 지금 세마치고면으로 용도 와. 대값랑도 코로사 조조도 왔어. 직때 직담으로 와나 코로사네 소소 세마치고는 와. 델도가 차는 건도 와. 대가도 다 냠냠여러 왔어.
And sometimes I'm sure we all have this experience that for no reasons we become so angry. And so we really have to observe ourselves. This is very important.
대자와대 다 가서 그걸 납셨대. 다 하나씩 어디서 what's your name? Mark.
Your name?
Mike? Mark.
Mark.
자와 두고대 담보라. 라치바드 비친즈 단다들 투데레스. 대자로텔라 되네. 다 대가 아니 자산 부시적으로 와서 또 단다대 받지. 라치바드 비친즈.
And so sometimes for no reason we become really angry, unhappy, and frustrated. So when we trace the root of this unhappiness, this unfulfilled mind state, as Mark mentioned yesterday, it's related with our self-cherishing thought. The self-cherishing thought, which really sometimes become the causes of all this unhappiness.
먼저 너도 용도 왔어. 다 네가 가르나 예매도 와서 좋가니 졸 예매도 간에 용도 쓰나. 아니 야무나 소소 녀녀들라 직 참아도 직 소소 맨다가 쇼온 참발라 대 소소 녀녀비 제대되시네 소소 참발라 직 마대와 용거래서 대값 땅어도 컨트롤하는 거 쓰는 거래서 근데 용도 해줘도 직 삼당더라고. 먼저 미실라야 마가와 정화이나 야무나 소소라 직 마대가 쓰길라 봐. 야무나 남주 때 봐. 야무나 소소고 녀녀들이라 직 특도 자로 야무나 남주도 tembr아 때네 소소 삼아 직때 제마토가 직 마대와 용도 왔어. 어떻게 깨지네 컨트롤야. 말이 용거 다 컨트롤야 라야게 칼라나데 야숙들에서.
If we observe carefully and we get angry when our relatives have been abused or they have been rebuked, or sometimes we get angry because ourselves has been victim of others' harsh word and so on. And so this is so obvious that my or ours the cause of the anger is related with something about mine. And when such experience take places, then we could not really be patient. We tend to become so frustrated and easily triggered to respond. So that's if you monitor, this is where anger is coming from. It's either me or my.
아라니 집을 주는데 모두 등을 가려 토비 지신을 가로 주는데 모두 등을 오전 통내서 다라 집에 젠데 소소로 면도가 강가 용어 이제든 통내 따대며 와서 답시고 이런 소용이 없어.
So in the Guru Puja text by Penjin Lobsang Chögyal, he said, when you see that the self-cherishing thought is the causes or the root of all the troubles, all the problem, then by seeing that, you really have to approach it with replacing it with cherishing others.
다탱가도 레디오 따다시 선물이다. 만도지 고로 사와이나 좌도 사와이나 셰달라와이나 얌나 소소라지 바초에 껴요. 얌나 소소 녀녀들라 껴요. 진짜 텔레테니 소소 바초를 막아 자르고도 되게도 해. 그냥 좌도로
Can you examine or check that our anger is usually about ourselves or about our relatives? It's basically about me or my. Is that the case for you? Every time we get angry, it's about either ourselves or it's about our relatives and something. Is this the case for you?
Right? 배차셔봐야. 야, 그거는 야고 지금은 넣었어. 콜콜. 야, 그게 남이라 직전에서 왔어. 콜 사용도 봤어. 근데다 라니 찌도 되바 그니고 다 라니 찌반도 되게 되바 차는 거래스.
So when you check, you get angry because other person has complained or criticized you, or you get angry because somebody really criticized your relatives or your parents or your beloved one. And so this is about these two things. And so which really goes back to the self-cherishing mind or the self-cherishing thought. And it's about the self, it's about the self, basically. Is this the case?
Okay. What do you think? We need to analytical meditation. Buddha said, don't burn fat for me, right? This is my experience, but you can check. Buddha told us whatever he get experience, he told that. He said, I show you the path of the Buddhahood. It's not up to you. Therefore, now we have to, it's true or not. You're really thinking that what the essence of the Buddha's teaching is really related for our life these times. Like this text, they say, when you unhappy mind, this is the fruit or cause of the angry. This text wrote the Shantideva almost more than 2,000 years. Look, at that time, he exactly read our mind, right? As a scientist, today they say that, then tomorrow they find another one. Okay, they find another one. The Buddha, and who the person Buddhahood, they really understand our all single phenomena. When they say, when you're the Buddha must understand everything. He can see, he or she, see all the phenomena. If you put something here, therefore, now this is something else on the Kuro Yondos. Nima Sonshad, Tandang, same time, Panyam the Jarana, Tata Chibayondos. Then the Sanjay Chatan, Kayode, Delton on the Portuguese.
We say the Buddha Shakyamuni is the omniscient one, that he knows everything. The traditional analogy for that is like you placed the gurura, is an Indian pebble inside of a fruit. By placing this in the palm of a Buddha, he can really, without tasting it, tell what taste it contains. Basically showing that he knows all phenomena, the nature of all phenomena. And it's like if we do analytical meditation and examine it carefully, this is so true, because the teachings that Buddha gave in 2,500 years ago are so kind of practical and so useful even during our time of life. And there's no conflict between the teaching that he taught many years ago and the life that we're leading is still very valuable. And it's like, in essence, it's a timelessness.
Oh, ta diga kundu diga suzu yedewo mepa. Diwan baba so yewanda ta tindiga dades. Tindiga sede yemedewa de number jobar shene. Karjin shon dingala never check the water. Ta kadina suzu drasa kana mojukaji. Ta kundu laga me esen ro. Sholoka jawati.
Can you read verse number 8, please?
Jawade suzu dala shedan tele lag dachi omares. Dadu yude teres ro. Kaje. Tindiga dawdi kadina ngi tajile kechu me esen ro. Jawati. Ngado loksa ipachi. Titan deshe ro.
Oh, sorry, we already read it, right? Verse number 8? Yes. So basically the verse number 8 is saying that what really causes us unhappiness, and what really causes all the mental turmoils, we can trace back this to a single source, which is the hatred or anger. And if we do not tackle that, we will never have any opportunity to enjoy peace. And therefore we have to tackle that anger, and we have to make a commitment not to lose control and give rise to anger. And why should we really tackle anger? Because it's really causing us pain. It's causing us turmoil and unhappiness. And therefore, when we think of enemies, the anger or the hatred is the worst enemy because it directly destroys our happiness. For that reason, we have to overcome the anger and we have to engage in the practice of patience. And that's the sole purposes of practicing patience.
Okay. Treda nado suzu magaw sherta nado das edo suzu magaw sed das lagdo das inji menda ki taking do mares treda che chu la mate ngado kangal suzu magaw sa yore was tambodo la ro che chu la mate semtes magaw ngado kangal yore ro treda tengado dar lagdo ko dra yende ku ngalam kazno kaji nge kaje ta dewala ndogi do ngado la waro was treda and she not Darita, Karjana, Chang Deval knew the was, or to drip quarter.
Usually, we all have, our own kind of enemies or people that, we associate with a problem. And because we, try to avoid them, we do not like people who's causing us pain and so on. Why? Because it's really disturbing my peace, and they are, affecting my mental health. And for that reason, we call them enemy, because they're really affecting us negatively. And then, if you look at anger, it's even worse. It's very powerful, and it totally destroys our happiness. And for that, we have to identify anger as the true enemy, because that anger really affects us very powerfully, very negatively, and really eradicate our happiness. And sometimes, we say, oh, I don't like that person. He's, my foe because he destroys my happiness. But if you really use that logic and then look at the anger, the anger, destroys your happiness much more powerfully than any other, beings. For that reason, we should consider anger as the true enemy, but not the people that we dislike.
Okay. Ta sholoka I have to go a little fast, okay? Sholoka Jeva Gwani Yamdro Shoro. Ama Gwa to Chuanina.
Please, can you read 9 and 10?
Whatever befalls me, I shall not disturb my mental joy. Having been made unhappy, I shall not accomplish what I wish for, and my virtues will decline. Why be unhappy about something if it can be remedied? And what is the use of being unhappy about something if it cannot be remedied?
Okay. That's the Tambo. Ta Karimu Karichawena. Not Kazikang and Rojin Javana. Tanga sent the Medewa Kondo the Chio Chegmes, Chegmes. Tati Tiana Peng Mare said any Shuloko Jovatis. Shulok Jevati, the Chegmes. The Konjo send the Trugumet, send the Manto, send Tempo Degi is and over. Send Tempo Madana, Suzu, Devaya Yamdu, Suzu, Gavaya Yamdu, Suzu Yenda, Chana Lando, the Tanga, send Tempo Degi is. The Shulok Jivati Kazuna Kazichana Kangan don't Travaya. The Kangan Tresaris. Chanachi Korola Korola Saris that and the Juya Yomaris, the Data Kundus and the Peng Maris and over.
Verse 9, basically we are making a pledge saying from now on I'm not going to get angry, I'm not going to lose control and give rise to anger. So it's like making pledge. And then verse 10 is saying that once we get anger, whatever happens, nothing could help. So there's no point getting angry. If we cannot do anything, what's the point of getting angry? So that's verse 10.
But I'm not going to travel and I'm going to send you on to us. That they tell us, take up like a Chananga, Samba too much use. Chanaka and Tresaris. Kangan Tresa Yenza, Katiti Kanga the Sag Tapshi Yonana, Chanan Semti Chana, Machina Chana the Seb check to was. Katiti Kanga the Seven Mingaji Banana, Chanakarachana de Cosanio Maris Tenisa. Chanagi sem true deva, Yamadeva Chedi, Chanala Nevanza, Tasem Yapotavajago Esrava.
So verse 10 basically saying when we experience some difficulties or challenges, then often we lose our peace. We become agitated, we become angry. And the advice in this verse, the Shantideva is offering, is saying there's no point, getting angry over something you couldn't do, because getting angry is, is even worse than what you're not able to do. And what's really most important is you should have a control on your mind, not give rise to anger, but really try to sustain peace in your mind. And by getting angry, it doesn't help the fact that you already had that trouble. It maybe wasn't the situation.
Okay? Tasholoka, Juchi, Juni, Johnson, Jipsibarachi.
And now can you please read verse 11, 12, 13, and 14?
For myself and for my friends, I do not want suffering, contempt, harsh words, and unpleasant talk. But for my enemies it is the opposite. The causes of happiness occasionally occur, whereas the causes of suffering are very many. Without suffering there is no Therefore, mind, you should stand firm. If the followers of Durga and the people of Karnataka endure the feelings of burns, cuts, and the like meaninglessly, and for the sake of liberation, why have I no courage? There is nothing whatsoever that is not made easier through acquaintance. So through becoming acquainted with small harms, I will become patient with great harms.
Okay? Tasholoka Ju Kondo Chive Yed Kare, Kondo Karaji Jasna, and then Sozo Yamana Suzu True, and the Tanzola Yamana Tsupunye Lapshava. Yamana Chi Nyamado Mashova. And the Konosagares and the Suzu Dala, then the Shona Nametasagares and Uro.
And the verse 11 basically saying we get angry because either ourselves or our beloved one become a victim or has been abused or has been a subject for harsh word. For that reason, we really get angry. On the other hand, if our foes or the enemies would go through the similar experiences, we wouldn't have that angry. Is this the case for you? Although this text was composed many years ago, is this still relevant?
and shunju na la chi song yo rang ge ton de mulam da ya kar mani wa na ni shen ji de ka ji so dunga ka mde bi dunga yo da ma sa ba na ta mi jin sem ji ta mi de de yin sa da duma re so wa o tin de yin za dunga man ngi ju me se dunga se de shi cha ne du cha re da ya de la ta nga zo ka ye me do ka so dunga ji yo ma da ye me do cha ro wa te du cha de sa me ye me do ma chi te shu ji na ya bo da ti cha na ge wa la kurgu yores tenga zore do ma che kange do chena ma dong ga chu theg me do wa shi cha ne.
And the verse 12 is talking about we have a very few opportunities and occasions for happiness, whereas the causes, the frequency of suffering is often. It's we most of the time we really kind of spend time with the unpleasant experiences, whereas the pleasant experience is really rare. And that's what the first two verses are saying. And then in the second the lines of the verse, in the same verse, 12, was saying, although that we constantly go through unhappiness, then you have to think about the advantage and the benefit of this suffering. Because when we go through suffering, then we get the strong renunciation. We get determination to overcome the suffering. When we really face with suffering, then we at the same time we get the determination to overcome that suffering, and that really empowers us, give us opportunity to do things, encourage us to really be creative and come up with solutions. As Shantideva pointed in the same book, in another chapter maybe, he's saying those who really have a strong position and the determination to help themselves would also have the potential to help others. On the other hand, if you're not able to help yourself, you will not be able to help others. And so here, this experience of a suffering gives you the opportunity, really become strong, empower you to really overcome the sufferings. As a result, you are much better equipped in the future to help others. And so this is the advantage of meeting or facing challenges.
Today is Jidwan and Driven Juadita, Jiting Junior, there's Sanjay Soja the Mara was. Kangi Hako was. Jidwan and Driven Juad and Jiting Junior, Kuchen and Tavana. There's Sanjay Soja Mara. Tenita, Dunga Jan Shandama, Dunga Mambo Kaja, Chananga Jamo Dosha was on the Lawyers. Today is Jamo Dosha was. Today is Chana Dungamo Yonda, Yonda, Karjan, Chana Jamo Duvana, Chana Yongers, another two Lawyers.
And in the same context here, Shantideva is saying the reason we shouldn't be discouraged that we, are going through these sufferings. This is because it's so obvious that everything comes out of causes. I mean, that is not exclusive to Buddhism. Every kind of result that you're going through, I'm sure there is a causes for that. And so every misfortunes that we go through now must have a causes, either in this life or in our previous lifetime. And so we have to encourage ourselves to look at the sufferings, give it a kind of perspective, saying, the reason I go through this suffering, I'm sure there's a reason for that. Because without a proper causes, result wouldn't happen. And the result that I'm going through, I'm sure there's a cause for that.
Okay? Oh, today is a this tag is a I showed you not so it was. And the Dunga turned the same yacha, Dunga Jalangamber jokes. And the Deva turned the same yacha, David Jana Dratan jumps. What to Shimo Soyo was that doesn't matter. Shujazan Zuruchinia. That does the Koana, Koamo Negres.
And we really have to be very broad-minded, and we have to really look from different dimensions when we go through a difficult experience. As Shantideva mentioned also in another chapter, that although we desire for happiness, but we constantly engage in the causes that have a negative impact. And as a result, we constantly continue our experience of misfortune. That is because we keep creating causes for unhappiness with the intention or with desire for happiness. And we have to really figure that out carefully if we wanted to really get rid of suffering.
Okay? That's all I choose them the Galana. And it's 10 days. The Machuju Tendala, so you look tongue, and she call it Jagatu was Teresa and the Tendava, Tawa, the Tenjaba Komata, the Takali, Luja, call it Jaguri, Japtogres. Send you Chamano, Sarava. And then she look at Chichi the Garana. Japtoga Garana, come the lever man in the county mice. So you call it Javayana and the Kalikalitin did over this. Kaji loved over this. Lega Kajina, Tambo Kale, the Kokale, Pandid over this. That is Yaman in the Kokova and Ravando.
So, verse number 13 is saying that we should really work hard. We should really, meet the challenge and work hard. Why? Because we see people who are striving for happiness for this life, who are merely, creating a temporary happiness, and they still go through, hazardous experience. They go through, constant challenges to create a temporary happiness. But for us, if we're looking for, a liberation, if we're looking for the enlightenment, I mean, that's a huge task. And of course, we have to work harder than them. We have to really take the challenges, because our causes or the reasons for the challenges is not just for a momentary experience. We are looking for a long-lasting happiness. For that reason, we should be encouraged to meet the challenges, and we shouldn't really give up. So that's advice for the verse 13. In the verse 14, is continue saying, yes, we have to be encouraged. We have to be courageous, and we have to work hard. And then continue verse 14 saying, we can do it, because if we get used to it, if we become familiar with the experience, nothing would stop us. Here he used the word becoming acquainted with, and through acquaintances, or becoming familiar with the subject. There's nothing that we couldn't do. Basically, it's encouraging us and giving us really the light. Basically saying, if you work hard, nothing will stop you. You have the power to do. And if we reflect that with our own experience, and it's so obvious, there's nothing we can't do if we put every effort correctly.
Example, you guys very good to writing computer. You don't need to watch it, right? It's your lot useful. Before, when I come to US, still I'm like that, I just in a trap. And you guys maybe not like that, not easy like that. Now you guys even use a small phone, it's very easy. They show to it shows to useful.
Once become familiar.
Familiar, right?
Or train. Here, the translation says, become acquaintances, right?
Correct.
Through acquaintance, the middle is through acquaintance.
Come not lewa major days. Combayana, lewa major ngi omar. Combayana, kaji te drum mutuba, kaji kusu karo. Tigi, kare combayana, the tela kaji kempa chagari, kaji to so tobre said, or.
Once you become here, the Kwam in Tibetan become familiar or get used to, or sometimes even become expert. So the meaning that going through certain trainings and practices, you become so fluent, so expert on the subject. Nothing's impossible, nothing's difficult. You make it really easy. Geshe was using the example of typing skills. Someone who got used to the typing, they don't have to look at the board, they don't look at the finger, they can do it automatically. Whereas for someone who never done this, it's such a daunting task. And so this saying, once you become familiar, nothing is impossible.
Example, you guys are very good for dancing. When you guys heard that their voice or the sound, you can do that. First, maybe you're not very good, but you do 1 time, 2 time, 3 time. Then you don't need to watch what's a pentation. You can just follow exactly the music, just right. Therefore, anything, everything, if you're very familiar, it's with nothing too difficult. Then they say, you accept or you be patient, there's small problems, then you can do also big problems as possible. Right now, we don't accept any small problem, right? Any small problem. Because it's for us, ourselves, very important. Therefore, how much strong we have touched for ourselves, that much we have problem. It's for example, the person who is a more relaxed person, the less problem. The person who is very nervous, I don't want like that, I don't want like that, very strong.
Very arrogant.
Oh, he's not doing very well, he's not doing well, or she's not doing well. He found all the problem, then he's not very comfortable. Because they make by himself, because he's looking at the faults. Usually Buddha told, you need to respect all sentient beings. We don't know who's really Buddha. The Karo, just a Tamarajin, Namde no Somewa, Kaji, Taiwe Yobe Medoja, the Netherlands Zabasha was, and then Gazon Manama with town at the square, Kyogi Gardana, and then Gazon Tongomare. Susan Manda Jensen the Chin Miomar Lavana, that day. Kaji, Takuba Sakaros Kaji, Jizayada Mares, Pena Tayo be Medojin. Delia Tunchin Boji, that's Lumadelado, Sakana Prafa Jero, Yawaja, the Jado Pedona, Holaya Sati Saluchi, my Tompe Tinal Miluk, Tika Takapshana, Tang Shulon Tomaroa. And then Gazon Deli Mayo Mardak, and then Tumulana, Tiolo Suzumano Gentleman Yoros, Tedochiba. Gave Tamba said the Kawai Agomar, and the Chijina Sanji, Shaju Seba Ujuris. Teresa, the Nichila Suzuki Kado Town, Konodosan, Suzu Dipa Lapchimo Sagres, the Mataso. Maybe I talk too much.
So here, also saying we have to be really extremely careful about tackling anger. Because with the influence of the anger, sometimes we really cause a problem. We attack, we criticize other beings, right? And under the influence of anger, sometimes we go after other people, we really harass them. And if we're not be careful, this is a very dangerous act. Why? As the Geshe mentions in his commentary on the Abhidharma text, saying that with holes full of fire and covered with certain grasses, and if we look at them, it's just like a normal kind of ground. Maybe in America you don't have it, but in Tibet and any others, there are still a lot of natural places, and so maybe beneath the surfaces there like a lot of ashes full of fire, but the surface is so deceptive that if you're not careful, you fall into this hole and you get burned. The reason you get burned is because it's so deceptive. The surfaces wouldn't indicate any danger, and as a result, you fall into this kind of dangerous places. Likewise, we meet different individuals, different people, and in the surfaces, appearances, they show no sign of being Buddha or Bodhisattvas, but there could be Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, but we don't see it. As a result, if we harm them, if we criticize them, if we disturb their mental peace, eventually we are the one who will really experience a lot of suffering because of the attacking bodhisattvas or even criticizing Buddha. You accumulate really enormous negative deeds, and for that reason, because we don't have this foresight of knowing who's a bodhisattva, who's not, and it's best for now, for our own interest, really not to criticize or cause harm to others. And it's a quite effective way of preventing us from falling into these really grave negative deeds.
Okay.
And now can you please read verse 15 and 16?
Who has not seen this to be filled with meaningless sufferings, such as the feelings of harms from snakes, insects, hunger and thirst, and of rashes. I should not be impatient with heat and cold, wind and rain, and so forth, and sickness, bondage, beatings, and so forth. For if I am, the harm will increase.
And it's true to Malcolm is Suzu Zava Machevana, Suzu teaches Gangan Chuju the Chimbosona, Suzula doing man pegres and
No.
Suzu Zapa Yamdo resent.
The verse 15 is basically saying that because we are not trained, we don't have the endurance of being patient, we're not able to really endure small sufferings, small troubles, like even insect bite or getting hungry experience. We don't have this kind of capacity for patience. As a result, we are easily irritated. Our peace of mind is easily disturbed by a small factor. And then the verse 16 saying, but if we continue like that, then we would not be able to really endure greater sufferings. And therefore, really through practicing patience, we can endure both great and small experiences of an unpleasant moment. And so basically it's advising us to engage in the practice of patience so that we can easily endure unpleasant experiences and maintain our calm.
For example, you go to India, there are a lot of insects. That doesn't bother Indians. They bother us. Because the Indians doesn't care. They grow up that they care. This mosquito is okay. But for us, big deal. They bring a lot of disease. They make, even being more disease. Also, we bring more. 소소 침부 소식이로 왔어. 나사 개우리 지지니 뭐가 신나라 소식이로 왔어. 내가 내가 그 사대 컨트롤 거대 가지 고소 소코는 너 찍게 말은 가서 너 마치기 그래. 소소 때 너가 너잖아. 소소 때 뭐 너요 너.
So in India, a lot of you been there, right? You get a mosquito, biting you, and the Indians really got used to it. They become familiar with that. They just ignore the mosquitoes, and the mosquitoes are not really able to harm them as powerfully as the Tibetans. Whereas the Tibetans, they're easily irritated with the mosquitoes, and they make it such a big deal. As a result, the mosquitoes are really harming the Tibetan more than the Indians because you make a huge fuss out of it. And as a result, you lose your control and the peace of mind. And the mosquitoes really get the best out of you. So that's the advice we're getting here is once you really engage in the practice of patience, nothing can really bother you.
Okay. 다시 올라가. 줍든 좁제 주고 뉴스 발념을 넣으시더라고.
Can you read verse 17 to 20, please?
Some, when they see their own blood, become especially brave and steady. But some, when they see the blood of others, become unconscious and faint. These come from the states of the mind, being either steady or timid. Therefore I shall disregard harms and be unaffected by suffering. Even when those who are skilled are suffering, their minds remain very lucid and undefiled. When war is waged against the afflictions, much harm is caused at the time of battle. The victorious heroes are those who, having disregarded all suffering, vanquish the foes of hatred and so forth. The rest slay corpses.
다 뒤가 다 델타 스 공을 내려오도 간지 네가 간지 조바 곰바였나 아니 야 떼업제 오다 빼는 거래 야 배야요 그러고 아니 미카지 아니 미셴베가 차도나 마도 그래 신도 가지 양테는 막 쇼음도 같은 용도 와서 아니 다 빠워도 간지 샘 가는 거 강한테 아니 샘 쇼고 말에 달라 다는 제 톱거래서 하는 거로 세단 요모라야 봐이 이제 걸어야 아니 저도 강에 뭐 용어래나 강에도 조바 치고 그래서 다 자성 디디로 오시나.
So these verses are really very easy to understand. They don't need a great deal of explanation. They're so clear. In essence, basically, Shantideva is saying here that when you engage in the practice of patience, your patience will grow. And as a result, you can enjoy both the small and big problems without any kind of problem. And as you engage in the practice of a patient, your patience would increase and you can take on much bigger challenges because you really become a much more trained person. But at the time of training, you will face many problems and challenges, and you have to really enjoy them to really enjoy a greater fruit of the practicing patience, which is like a peace. Once you become so skilled in practicing patience, nothing can really bother you. So that's the essence advice here.
Okay, 다시 올라가 뉴스 짝지기다. 다 짝지기 줄로 들어. 짝지 주볼로나. 가가는 작은 거.
Can you read verse 21, please?
Furthermore, suffering has good qualities. Through being disheartened with it, arrogance is dispelled, compassion arises for those in cyclic existence, negativities are shunned, and joy is found in virtue.
다 동화라 예대대도 요래서 와 가르나 소수 다 동화다 냐와라 때네 소수jel라야 아니 지금 다 나자제가 말해서 아니 차도제가 말해 가서 다 두서 맞지와 팽해서 소소 강년도 예와 인자 아니 대통에 티 동화다 통에 아니 대다 자나 냠베네 거봐라 니제제가래 동화 아니 문도변 저번 통에 아니 동화도 타나서메다 득발라 좀 득발한 제와
basically, this verse is talking about the positive aspect of suffering, because the sufferings really help us to overcome our arrogancy. The sufferings really also help us to calm down our hatred. And because when we and others going through suffering, we also kind of naturally want us and others be free of suffering. We get that kind of feeling, saying either me or others, I want them to be free of suffering. Consequently, the suffering is really drawing compassion to you. And also, as you're going through suffering, then you start reflecting what caused the suffering. And when you figure out what really caused it, you get a better understanding about how things work. And as a result, it will prevent you falling into the same trap. Because once you going through the suffering, as if you learn the lesson, and then the sufferings really help you to prevent you repeating the same mistake. So these are some of the good qualities of suffering. Can you read from 22 to 24?
As I do not become angry at great sources of suffering such as bile disease, then why be angry at those with mind? They too are provoked by conditions. For example, although they are not wished for, these sicknesses arise. Likewise, although they are not wished for, these afflictions forcibly arise. Without thinking I shall be angry, people become angry with no resistance. Without thinking I shall produce, likewise anger itself is produced.
다들 딱지단 거다. 내 딱지단 거였어. 봐줘도 나 컨트롤 사기도. 그만 내가 저던다. 근데 지난 게 나사 치발라도 도저라 안에 사주고 나고 다 콜라야 세미오 말에. 코라와요 말에 그 세주 만주고 온 거. 나에서나 아니 가다 되면 좋아요 말에. 아니 그 요망 오시 말에. 간디 딱지단 거죠.
And these verses is really it starts the debate. And the debate is basically saying, why should you get angry at something that is unpleasant experience? There's a, well, it's unpleasant. Then if this is the case, why don't you get angry at disease such as a bile, right? Bile disease, because it's still causing you unhappiness. If you get angry at people because you think they're causing you uneasiness, you should also get angry at the diseases because it's also creating the same effect of losing your peace.
Right? 근데 어떻게 말했어? 가서나 나사 그 영화도 그 괜찮은데 내가 말했나? 근데 나 콘도사게도 나 콘도사고 상고요 말했어. 코란 요모데 시험하잖니. 아니 콘도사고마다 나 콘도사고 코란 내 찍고 상고요 말했어.
So then people say, no, the experience of a disease and experience of someone causing me anger is different, because for the disease has no intention to cause me harm, whereas the person who has the intention to cause me harm, as a result, I get angry at the person but not at the disease. Then Shantideva is saying you are wrong here, because the person who caused you the anger, right, have no intention of causing you anger or unhappiness, because the person is under the influence of affliction and so on, and he has no control. He maybe didn't want it to cause you unhappiness, but the person has to lose the control and he's conditioned. And he, he's not in free agent. And if you look from that perspective, both, someone who's causing you a problem and the disease is same, because they both have no intention, because they both are under the influence of condition. Because we said disease is also conditioned, through certain causes, right? Likewise, the person who's causing you anger also conditioned. So I think in a similar way, they're saying both are similarly conditioned, not free of condition.
And that's what is Tanga Traduk Sabdi Subject Lokshadrava.
Can you please recite 25th, 6th, and 7th? 25th to 28th.
All misdeeds there are, and all the various kinds of negativities, arise through the force of conditions. They do not have self-power. These conditions that assemble together have no intention, I shall produce, and neither does that produced by them have intention, I will be produced. That which is asserted as the principle, and that which is imputed as the self, do not arise after having purposely thought, I shall arise. If they are not produced and non-existent, what is asserted to be produced at that time? Since it would always be distracted to its objects, it follows that it will never cease.
And also, can you please read 29th and 30th?
If the self were permanent, it would obviously be devoid of activity, just like space. So even if it were to meet with other conditions, what could the unchanging do? Even if, when acted upon, it remains as before, then what did activity do to it? If it is said, this is the activity of that, how could the two ever be related?
Okay, finish. 다 솔로가 이제 장가다 자두니 같은다. 아니 소소라지 컨트롤해야지 다세지 용도 더 깨나 되는 쇼마래. 그래서 라고 그런 쇼마래 해서 다 단다도 되래 들어와.
Verse 25th and 26th is when we look at our enemy, and this is very important. Our enemies, coming out of a condition, they are conditioned, they are influenced by other conditions, and they're not a free being, or they're not a free of agent. They are under the influence of so many other factors and condition, and this is important to understand.
다 솔로가 이제 잡제 저하고 숨지 되고 싫어 단체 받아 아니 리파치 되니도 바꿔요 그래서 좋아 싫어 단체 배서야 돼 다시리 제외서 진다고 그래서 당한도 그러잖아 자상 맞중에서 다시리 제외서 시작 아니 강에로 극한이야 뭐냐면 아니 강에 강가 아니 그런 게 약히도 그래서 아니 슈마 아니 코나야 tum도 그래서 가지 다시리 제외서 진다고 또 시작 강도 땅에서까지 콜라마셔요 그래서 아니 싫어 빠져야 돼 아니 라자도 비대 다서 가지 다 코니까 되게 이제 단디 가서
so the verse 27, 8, 9, and 30 is basically really having the non-Buddhist philosophy or the schools. In India, you have the four major different schools of non-Buddhist traditions. And here, they're challenging the view of Sambhoga, right? The school Tangjemba. Sankhya. Yes, Sankhya school. And basically, these schools really believe in the self. And they really believe that there is a permanent self there, which really kind of do the kind of role of creating and uncreating causes and effect. And that self is more like the even the creator, and which are able to create things, which are able to seize things. And because they believe in that, they're saying because there's a self inherent there's a self inherent nature. Because of that, things can be done intentionally, purposely. And because before we said that there's no self, everything's conditions. So this whole notion of intention or purpose is not valid, because you're conditioned. You rely on so many factors. And so Shantideva, immediately challenged this Samkhya, saying that if there is this, really self, which like almost dictating the events, and then you have to really define what is that self.
Okay? Had shachi chilo haji.
좋아지기도.
Yeah.
근데 장전벌 딱 하나 줘야 돼. 저거.
다시
이 되체제 이 되비는 맞아 어떤지 맨스고 봐. 뒤뒤 세번 양이 쳐다 가서 좋아요.
미메탄 되게 가르스나 아니 팽이 봐주는데 다 깽이지로 팽이 매치 팽이 소요래서 소중한 받지 말이야. 팽이가 투다 지어줘래서 두 용을 봐. 만소선은 다세도 다트 큰가지 여러분 이거 받치게 메스케로. 근데 말아 소주고 저 먹어도 저 다른 거서. 말말 팽이는 지어줘래서. 근데 당신 뭐 다시리 지어서 그 드라이다 이년다 강을 지어대 아니 다시리 지어 지어래서 소중한 받치 좀 말해서. 어색으로 봐. 근데 딱 가서도 따다는 가다로 그런 가서 말이야. 소중한데 달라 봐서 그것도 체험을 당근에 수통을 달라랑 와요 말해서. 다대한 유모장 지어래서 소중한 따된 데 봐야 되더라고.
So the relationship, I asked Geshe, what is the relevance of this commentary to the practice of patience? And Geshe is saying, yes, in essence, as I mentioned before, that as a Buddhist, we really look everything as a condition, and nothing is free of causes and effect. So the individual who we think is harming us intentionally, but if we really go through very carefully, that individual is conditioned and under the influence of affliction and so on, and has no power. Once you are under the influence of affliction, you do things without your willingness. You do things that you have no control over. And when you lose control and when you are not in charge of something, how can you say this is intentional, right? And then on the other hand, the non-Buddhist traditions who believe in the essence of self, and they say, oh yeah, this is caused by this creator or that self, because we believe in the inherent nature of self and so on. And so he's debating with the non-Buddhist traditions, and his answer will come back later.
Okay? Okay, now we stop here for the belly. Otherwise, if we get tired, angry, makes develop our angry. We study patient, then maybe not patient. Right? Therefore, have a wonderful lunchtime. Then we come back, we can go.
So
more.
We regroup at what time?
The person harming us isn't consciously harming us. They have the habit, the propensity to do these things. So they're not thinking, I want to harm you, right? They just have the habit of it. Propensities.
Yeah, Quran this word. That music ran never get to your married, never gave us a job. You could never get the way your marriage. In a call Karsora, that you could see the Ghana show us at what you Pachang and what you can never give us secure there.
Well, Pachangamba, Kaji Nyomova, Komitopchi.
More so with actually the under the influence of affliction.
배낭 알아서 깨지시니 봐주고 코노 사는 것도 왔을 때 저는 딱 알아서 이제 안도 코노 나고 선글로도 매야서 나 안도 깨지 시했던 노래이나 봐주고 고탄 노래이나 딕 담는 것도 간지 바지 다자는 것도 왔어요. 담봉도 그 다죠 섬섬 매야서.
So if you look at a just simple kind of misunderstanding, sometimes the way someone says something, it's easily trigger our anger. But that person may not have intention to trigger your anger or cause you harm. But it's how the person is. The way being of your kind of personality, sometimes it's become a causes of the angry or anger to others. But he didn't have the intention to cause you that suffering.
And Jiramuchiga dance church to boost it. Mari Mabi Machi Kinintap. Dunga Simji Esro. And then that dance, Ganga, Miashu de Ganga, can't chew the Tata E. Some Zanga Norgu Shirano to some Tomartera, dance church to boost chairs, Chag down people to the race. Then the dance Hunga machine, Mari Mambagata to the race. Then that time, Mishua in that, like a Norjo Mambo, in the Dumanya.
Lama Tsongkhapa mentions in the three principle path. He said, we are so tightened, bounded by our self-grasping mind, and then which affect with affliction. So the self-grasping is like a rope which tied us, and then the affliction is like a box that we were put into that. And because of the self-grasping and affliction, we go through a torment of the three sufferings. But we are not. We have no control as if on what we do. Why? Because we are under the influence of affliction, which is caused by a self-grasping attitude. Net. And Dharmakirti also mentioned in the commentary on one of the Abhidhamma texts that the self-grasping mind is like a net, the fishing net. And when the fishing net is thrown in the water, then it will catch a lot of fish. And the self-grasping is like that. When the self-grasping is really released, it will, basically subdue us, and we will be bounded in that and causing us a lot of problem. So it will be a good idea to release or to be relieved of that self-grasping mind, so that we have a little bit joyous time.
Like we do a lot of annoying mistakes. When I was first come to US, I got a computer. I was very exciting. I never touched before computer. Then I click many places. Every day stock. Then one man strength. You have to fix it every day. Because problems, I am annoying user. There's a lot of mistakes. There are a lot of problems coming like that. Many things we do annoying in reality. Our actions bring a lot of problems. Okay? Sure. Okay, thank you. Enjoy lunch. But don't eat too much, otherwise you fall.